Okay, hi everyone. So I just wanted to show you something from That's an old video. That's from 2009. So so I don't forget to do it. Let's go to the cyber campus and make sure we set up the smart attendance and for the class. And so let's open that up and go to Cyber Campus, and just close this. You see behind me the big convention hall where this conference I'm attending is being held. Fortunately, the convention hall has a nice big nice strong Wi-Fi signal, which is allowing me to do this here. So we go to methodology, international studies, and we go to attendance, and we are in week 5, and we go to smart attendance, and that there seems to be some slowness in smart attendance working right now for some reason, maybe because we'll have to come back to it to see if it will finally offer a number that we can use to give you a number to enter for smart attendance. But let's not wait for it. Let's just go on and talk about the material that you have for this week. And I think you can all hear me, right? And so we go here to share screen and the notes here, and that one. Let's see if I can find before we go to the notes, let's do some review regarding or some illustrations of some of these points that are highlighted in the book. So you see, for example, this, I'll just close this. I don't need this right now. This is an article that was I encountered a couple years ago, which I thought was interesting in terms of about ascription, right? Ascription. Basically, people ascribe status to nations, right? So if I'm born an American, that has a lot of status, or has had a lot of status in the world because of the assumptions about American power and influence. Assimilation is within societies, and that's what countries are. Organizations can vary in size, and nations are just simply states that are vast organizations. The state, it might be the United States or the People's Republic of China or South Korea or France. These are all just vast, large, complex organizations. That's all they are. And some of these organizations have intense emotional attachment to them by the people that belong to them. And we call that patriotism and nationalism. But within these organizations are people that have different cultures or perceived as having different cultures and different backgrounds. And the ease with which those different minorities assimilate into French or American or Korean or Russian or Chinese culture depends upon what the prevailing view within those societies are in terms of the status and respect that those different minority groups have. And if they are seen as culturally very different, they're likely to have less status and respect if their culture is perceived to be very different from the core dominant culture that defines French culture or American culture or Russian culture within Russia or German culture within Germany or Korean culture within South Korea. People belong to these different minority groups. They have to make a decision and a choice about how hard they're going to try to be allowed to assimilate, to try to strive to integrate into their society, which they might want to try to do, which they often do want to try to do if they want to achieve their highest dreams, status, respect, and hopes, right? So this is just an article about how Jews have often faced the confrontation or the dilemma of choosing whether or not they should give up or appear to hide some of their culture in order to be able to assimilate into French or German or now American or other cultures. And or do we want to maintain do Jews in America want to maintain their distinctiveness? And what are the incentives that come from wanting to maintain your distinctiveness? They include, just, feeling, that changing, it means changing society so that you can feel good about who you are, rather than trying to hide and feel ashamed of who you are in terms of your culture. And so I won't go through it here, but just again to show you how ascription is an important topic in all societies because of nationalism, right? That some groups are stereotyped as being inferior and therefore and low status. That's what inferior means, and therefore bad. And a socially just society facilitates the integration, if not the assimilation, of these groups into society, keeping in mind that people are created by society to be who they are. So, African Americans are made to have African American culture because of their experience in the United States. People are not born the way they are; they're constructed that way. So, so this is a question about should, for example, should Judaism and among Jews in America be viewed as something that that Jews assign and choose, or is it something to be that is something to be achieved? And I won't go into it here, but I have a question for you in terms of, is it possible for non-Koreans to assimilate into South Korean society? Can children, because Jews in the United States are marrying non-Jews by increasing numbers, and I've heard people predict that just in a matter of decades, Jewish Americans will assimilate into American society, and the measure of that predisposition is intermarriage rates. And if you're a Jewish nationalist, somebody who's an American nationalist and a Jewish nationalist, an intense Jewish self-identifier, this is something that you're going to find to be disturbing. You might want to try to resist. And there have been efforts, particularly by very strongly committed Jews, strongly committed to Israel, who also are Americans, to try to convince Jews to marry other Jews, and to also try to convince the Israeli government and the authorities in Israel to change the definition of who is a Jew, to make it easier to be a Jew without relying upon traditional notions of Judaism. Because Judaism is typically passed through the mother's line. So, according to traditional Judaism, if your father was a Jew and your mother was not a Jew, that person was born as not a Jew. So, to make it easier for somebody to continue to be Jewish, which of course generates controversy and opposition by traditional conservative people and thinkers and traditionalists. So. I just want to ask you if you think that mixed Korean and non-Korean children, now that we have more people coming into Korea who are not Korean, as I mentioned, there's at least 1 million people who now live and work in Korea, South Korea, who are not born in South Korea, including me, but lots of people doing other kinds of work. If they have children, can those children of mixed marriages, can they become fully Korean in the general view of Korean society? Can a child born to a Chinese or Korean parent, or to an American and Korean parent, can that child become fully accepted as Korean? Are they going to feel pressure to hide their mixed background as an American and a Korean, and a Chinese and a Korean, or a French person and a Korean? Will there be incentives and pressures to hide that? I mean, I felt that myself when I was growing up in America. As I told you, my father didn't want to speak Italian to me when I was growing up, because he thought that if you appeared to be not fully traditionally American, like speak English with an accent, that you're going to suffer, you're going to pay a price. And he did not want us to have any kind of disadvantage. So he was nervous about us learning Italian, because he felt Italians faced enough problems in America. So this is my question to you. In terms of ascription, can mixed Korean, non-Korean children, can they become fully Korean in the general view of South Korean society? And so you strongly agree, or they strongly disagree, if they can. And so let's go back to Cyber Campus and see what's going on. Okay, here we are, back to Cyber Campus. Okay, finally it did generate a smart screen number, and click on start attendance, and your number is 199. 199 is your smart attendance number, 199. And so we go to, not that. that, cancel that. Go to 199. So find it. Where is it? Stop share. Okay, there it is. Chat 199 is your smart attendance number, 199. So and we go back to the vote here on methodology, international and methodology, and so I would like your views about whether or not you think that really can somebody be fully accepted as Korean if it is known that that child, that person has a mixed background as an American Korean or Chinese and Korean or French and Korean or Belgian Korean. Can they be accepted as fully Korean if people know that they are mixed background? Would they face, in other words, incentives, psychological pressures to hide their mixed background? And so I think most of you already voted, so it's a controversial issue, and it is an issue that the Korean government is sensitive to, because Korea is known as a society that compared to other societies was highly culturally homogenous. And Koreans, this is something that comes up in the news reports repeatedly again and again and again, that Korean society is proud of being homogenous. It's one of the strengths of Korea. It's easier to organize Koreans. It's easier to get things done in Korea. Look how well they've dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's because they all feel like they share the same values, or at least the same cultural characteristics or traits. And now they're facing this issue of rising diversity, and there is resistance. There's resistance to the recovering class about bringing in migrants from Africa, like in Europe, or would Korea bring in migrants from more migrants from Asian conflicts, like in Asia? If Europe is far away, Africa is far away. What about in Asia? Would Korea agree to bring in Rohingya Muslim refugees fleeing persecution in Myanmar by the military junta, for example? So these are difficult, challenging topics. Okay, so we've gotten through that exercise, and I just wanted to do some remind us of some of the things we covered in the class. And what's this? Yeah, highlighting again that Asians themselves are aware about the fact that communitarianism in Confucian societies is supposedly one of the benefits or strengths of Asian economic development. So here's an article about, of course, this person did become president of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, until a few years ago, was considered to be an economic emerging market. It's now suffering great economic turmoil, in the news with protests and demonstrations against the government because of the terrible economic debt that the Rajapaksa family has generated. And then there's, of course, one of the highlighted examples of economic success in Asia, of course, is Singapore. And Lee Kuan Yew was the longtime ruler of Singapore, prime minister, and he declared, or he claimed, that much of the success for for Asia's economic development includes Asian values, and with Confucianism placing a high value on moral obligations to your family and to other groups, that this was important for explaining Singapore's success. Again, discussion about whether or not China is going to be successful as South Korea and Singapore. And I think that's a sense that Trump-Anar shares, that yes, China is doing what the Asian tigers have done. And so the world better prepare and not assume that the American way is the only way and the right way and the best way. And just to show you that these are the kinds of discussions that come up in the media. So I'll close that and close this one as well, and close this one as well. Don't need that. So let me go back to the notes for this week, and so we share screen, and we go to think these are the notes. And oh, close that. We don't want that one. Okay, how we manage time. So this is again a sensitive topic. I already talked about how, you know, when I was in Bulgaria, you know, Americans found it very, very frustrating that, you know, Bulgarians are not really punctual. Like, and you're not supposed to take it personally. And that is typically, you know, that's highlighted in certain American sayings, right? That time is money. Time is money. So how can you not be punctual? If time is valuable, how can you waste it and waste the time of other people who cannot get started on their projects because not everybody's ready to go? So this is, again, how we manage time. Managers need to have some shared expectation regarding how to approach time. You know, this is Trompenar's writing in easy, relatively easy to read English. The importance cultures give to the past, present, and future is the focus of this chapter. So Americans, they claim not to care about the past. Like, we don't care about people's backgrounds. We don't care about people's histories, not to mention people's family histories. We only focus upon the future. And of course, these are stereotypes. These are images about where people start and how they think about time and obligations that people have in terms of planning effectively in order to be successful, however you define what successful is. How one thinks of time has its own consequences. And he goes on here, does an achievement-oriented culture view the future? Must that be better than the past or present, since the future is where aspirations are realized? Right? The future is the best because that's where your dreams are achieved, right? In the future. And the past and present is denigrated. Does a relationship-oriented, ascriptive society, presumably like in Asia, see the future as dangerous because it may loosen the bonds of affection? And so these are, of course, straw men. We call, you know, basically provocative questions that are simplistic. Aside from cultural differences regarding the past, present, future, there are three subcomponents of the time dimension. Whether time is sequential, that is a series of linear passive events, or synchronic, that is in which events occur simultaneously so we can work on tasks in parallel. So, you know, Trompenar's in the book gives you a story about how he was amazed how he went to buy, I think, a train ticket in Argentina, and the woman who was selling him a train ticket, she was doing a number of different things at the same time while selling him a train ticket. And if you're an American, so this is, what kind of worker is this? The worker, the train cashier, the seller of the train ticket is supposed to be paying attention to me, focused on me, focusing their attention on what we're doing. How can they be talking on the phone and taking care of watching a child at the same time? That this is bad. This is uncivilized. This is immature. This is underdeveloped, because these people do not act like me, the American. The time horizon in terms of how people think. Do they think in terms of 3 months, 3 years, or 3 decades in terms of achieving an organization's objectives? Americans are notoriously short-sighted, right? And that's reflected, for example, in the stock market. You've got to show results in profitability every 3 months, every quarter, right? Versus German and Japanese businesses, they are more focused on long-term plans, and that's reflected in their financial systems. Until recently, at least, Germany and Japan relied much more on banks to provide funding for corporations rather than stock markets. And banks can have a more long-term orientation. And clock versus event time. That is, do we finish the job in the scheduled time, or do we deliver a better product by delivering a little later? So don't focus so much on being punctual, but deliver a better product. And they said all of these products are interrelated. Ideas about the future, memories of the past shape actions in the present. So that's an important point, right? That all of these factors are interrelated. Ideas about the future and memories of the past shape actions in the present. And so, you know, of course, this is the American version. Time is a linear sequence of never-ending discrete events that include minutes, hours, days, months, and years. Versus time as a circle with minutes and hours and other segments repeating themselves. And so, they do a good job in the book of referencing some important research in sociology. Kluckhohn and Strotbeck identified 3 types of cultures regarding orientation towards time: present-oriented cultures in which they're basically timeless, without tradition, and ignores the future. These might be more traditional minorities. In terms of, I say maybe Gypsy Roma communities in Europe. Typically, these are people that don't have a strong sense of their own history yet. Past-oriented, they are focused on maintaining and restoring traditions in the present. And future-oriented, a culture that envisions a more desirable future and sets out to realize it. And that's supposedly what developed societies are engaged in, at least the ones that dominate today. Organizations need to manage time, right? According to, sorry about that. Organizations need to manage time according to the contemporary experts. And this goes back to some of the founding work in organizational psychology, like trying to, beginning 100 years ago, particularly Americans, right? They did studies, these psychologists, about how to more effectively, efficiently organize your workers and study how long it takes for them to do a particular kind of task, and then organize the manufacturer, let us say, around these time and motion studies, breaking down the production process, the economic production process, in discrete segments that one follows the other. Time to market and just in time. These are all different approaches. Just in time, of course, that's got a lot of bad media coverage these days because of the emphasis on global production chains and having products delivered from the supplier that might be located in China, thousands of kilometers away, delivered to you as the manufacturer who needs that component just as it is due, just as it is needed, just in time. And no sooner, no later, so that you don't have to pay money to store it if it comes too soon. You don't want to have to stockpile. You don't want to have to, build up a reserve supply, because that's wasteful. That's profits not being made because you have this product, these components just sitting around. And of course, now with the breakdown of the global production chains, or disruption because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and now because of the war in Ukraine, this is now being reevaluated. And maybe the Chinese approach of making sure that, they'll provide products and components to other producers who need those components all over the world, but China will also make sure that it has all of its manufacturing necessities also located in its own country. And of course, now the Americans are talking in those terms as well these days, about in terms of national security. If we have to have ability to make masks and not outsource that to countries that do it cheaply, that produce masks cheaply, like in China, because then the next pandemic happens and America doesn't have enough masks to go around. And now, of course, also now about other issues, like, for example, other products, like, for example, car batteries. And now that everybody's moving to the production of electrical vehicles. Products age mature, having a life cycle like human beings. So that's another approach. They make a point that humans are unique in the animal kingdom in being aware of time. So we are unique in being aware of time. That's good to know. And we are unique in that we try to control time. Humans think in terms of the past, present, and future, but they do not give equal importance to each. Time is an idea rather than an object, so our culture strongly affects it. So time is an idea, not like this chair or this computer. It's an idea, so our culture strongly affects this idea called time. as a culturally determined idea, it is interwoven with how we strategize, plan, and coordinate our activities with others. And it is an integral dimension of how we organize activities and experience. When we create instruments to measure time, we shape our experiences of time. So here, I always wear my watch. I've got to have my watch, right? I've got to have this on. Even though, I really probably, it just makes me feel more secure that I am in control of time. I know what I need to do, and that this is a very significant cultural artifact. Remember that American expression, time is money. Time is money. The experience of time allows us to consider past events while it is out of sequence, and we can envision future events through the experience of time. Past, present, and future are all compressed. We can use past experience to decide what competitive move to make today with expectations regarding the future. This has been a big focus in the work of some of the founders of sociology. That this has been long known that, for example, Emile Durkheim, the French sociologist who did so much to create modern sociology, viewed time as a social construct which enabled members of a culture to coordinate their activities. Okay, so that's an interesting way to view time. It's a social construct, an idea that we all share. That's what a culture is. We share this thing, which enabled members of culture to coordinate their activities. Well, that's something to think about, right? So because cultures differ in this regard. The agreed time to meet may be approximate or precise. Allocated time to a task may be vitally important or merely a guide. Agreements specify exact times when the machine and its microprocessor are ready to be assembled. There may be a penalty clause of thousands of dollars in a contract imposed by one party or another for lateness. Intervals between inspection may also vary, indicating the manager's level of responsibility. And does the manager have 3 months or 3 years to get on with the job? Apparently, if they have 3 years, they must be a high profile, they must be high seniority, high status manager, because you've given them something, a lot of what is valuable. Organizations and Americans tend to give you little time, right? Like it should be pretty clear pretty soon whether or not you're effective or not as a manager. Organizations may plan far into the future and may be focused on the monthly reporting period. And they go on here, all three perceptions of time unite in our actions. The expectations of our future determine our perceptions of our present is no less accurate than claiming that our present actions determine our future. And also that our present experience determines how our view of the past is no less accurate than saying that the past has made us what we are today. So again, if you emphasize the present, that's going to be different from somebody who emphasizes the future or emphasizes the past. For example, if we had expected a payment today, but is then delayed into the future, we make ourselves miserable in the present. That's an American viewpoint. For example, we can discover a fact in the present that makes what we did in the past far more justifiable to ourselves. If you feel regrets, or we all do this, right? We think about behaviors that we undertook in the past, and we can feel very guilty about them. Sometimes I do, and then I learn something new about today about somebody that was involved in that past event, and then I change my evaluation of that past experience, and I feel better about myself. I didn't do something bad. But I spend a lot of time thinking about the past. How did I end up a professor in Korea? Which is great, but I had no idea that would end up that way. So An important part of creativity is to assemble past and present activities together with conjectures about the future into new combinations. So that's an interesting point. An important part of creativity is to assemble past and present activities together with conjectures about the future into new combinations. It sort of makes sense, right? I mean, creativity means producing products and services that people want, and that means now and into the future. And if you do that effectively, you're going to win. Again, these are my comments, and I don't know if I really want to spend much time on them. I mean, but we do see, for example, even in nations or political organizations like the European Union, that that there is, in order to try to strive to achieve a desired future, an image we have of the future, to go back and reassess our past. And so there's a lot of discussion about that in the United States these days about critical race theory, as we talked about, or tried to talk about on Monday. Yeah. By the way, the video file is available for last Monday's class, for Monday's classes. So there was a technical problem with the audio, but you can go hear them fully cleanly on Cyber Campus. But the point is that while confronting our present political controversies and issues, it pushes us to go back and re-examine what we collectively chose to forget and what we collectively chose to emphasize and remember, and modify and change it, partly in part as part of our efforts to engage in rhetorical debate and influence with each other to achieve our respective objectives in the present by influencing others around us, like public opinion. Different individuals and cultures may be differentially attracted to the past, present, and future orientations. Some people live entirely, and some cultures live entirely in the present or try to. We think about the past and the future in the present. It is just as true to state that expectations of our future determine our present as it is to state that our present experience determines our view of the past, or to state that the past has made us what we are today. It describes how we think. I think I already covered this. Maybe these are repeats. Okay, yeah, I think we'll go here. Okay, so again, more commentary for me, which I'm not going to spend time on. Henry Ford, of course, the great industrialist who gave us the modern car industry, believed that history is worthless. History is not important. Bunk means worthless, revealing the worldview of someone who lives entirely in the present. Right? Inquiry into things past is best forgotten. He goes on here, Trampanars does, some dream of a world that never was. They seek to create it today and in the future on the basis of their own imaginings and yearnings. Yeah, I mean, of course, we have this romantic self-image of what the golden age of the Arab world was. So Islamists, jihadists who are fighting American and European and Israeli imperialism in the Middle East have this golden memory of a golden age in which Islam was this perfect time in the history of their community. And look how much we have become degraded by our failures and the intervention by outsiders in our society. And so we can recreate that imagined golden age that we had centuries ago. And that is motivating to people. That's part of nationalism, right? That's part of nationalism. The memory, imagined memory of a historic golden age under King Sejong or under, or under Tsar Dusan the Great in Serbia, or under Tsar Samuil in Bulgaria, imagined golden age, or the Roman Empire for Mussolini. That, we will recreate the Roman Empire under fascist Italy, Italian government. We seek a return to a golden age. And it's an imagined past. It's not real. I mean, it's a stereotype, but these, people live for romantic images and symbols of their identity as a Frenchman, as an American, as a Korean. A Napoleonic legend reborn, a new frontier similar to the, we describe space, the final frontier, that we have this image, America was founded, in the midst of colonizing the Wild West in the North American continent, and now we should do the same in space. Of course, and we believe that the future is coming to us. It is a form of a destiny. It's dangerous romantic images, right? And they alone must define it. And he goes on, others live in a nostalgic past in which everything in the present world that is attempted must appeal. And those typically are called conservative societies, traditional societies. Okay, so they give you, let me see what's coming up here in terms of an activity. Okay, so let me go back here and cover these notes. So we already covered sequential versus polychronic notions. Two basic images of time. Time is sequential and time is synchronic or polychronic. Efficiency is supposedly going from A to B in a straight line with minimal effort and maximum effect in business. It is a desired attribute of sequentially oriented societies in Northern Europe and in the Anglo-Saxon world. The flaw in linear thinking is that straight lines may not always be the best way of addressing a task. It does not consider shared activities and cross connections. So he gives you an example, right? He's from Trump and ours is from Northern Europe. He goes to an Italian butcher shop to buy some, buy some food, some meat food. And one customer requests salami in this Italian butcher shop, and the Italian butcher retrieves the salami and shouts out, "Who else wants salami?" So that other people who arrived later than Trump and ours did, they got served first because they came to the butcher shop for salami. Trump and ours didn't come there for salami. Trump and ours got there first, but the butcher thought it was totally normal to ask who else wants salami, and Trump and ours is left waiting, even though he got there before these other people who bought salami. And of course, if you're an American, and and I think about things I did in Poland, and I did when I was traveling abroad for the first time, and boy, I kind of regret it now, because I was thinking like an American. Americans don't tolerate that. I was here first, you serve me, let me pay, and let me get out of here. You can't waste my time. Because of some sentimental, I was here first, I get served first, so I can leave, right? And so, but for Italians, it's just, no, it's just totally normal, right? This is totally normal behavior that people kind of expect it. But it saves time in serving more people, right? And for the Italian butcher, the butcher's got out the salami and he doesn't have to put it away. But again, he makes that point. The sequential principle is not entirely absent in that Italian butcher shop. The customers wanting only salami pay for the salami in the order in which they came into the store. So again, these are ideal, typical, romantic stereotypes of self, but they're romantic stereotypes. They're not complete. Even the Italians have linear notions of time, and even Americans do as well. About having synchronic. Americans have synchronic or polychronic notions of time. But I have trouble imagining right now an example. In Amsterdam or London, a butcher cannot act like that Italian butcher. Each customer must be addressed by the number he or she took when they came into the store, regardless of what cut of meat is being sold at the time. It's already, what cut of meat is out on the counter because it's already been brought out. The suggestion to serve all customers wanting salami while it was still out and unwrapped caused outrage among the staff and customers. I mean, Wow, that's a good example. I mean, I say it's a good example for me because of my background being the son of an Italian immigrant married to an American white woman, traditional working class white woman. It's like, wow, the conflicts. The synchronic model requires that people track various activities in parallel. It is not easy to accommodate for individuals who come from linear cultures. In a synchronic or polychronic term, and again, that's a term that he borrowed from a social scientist, Edward Hall. In a polychronic culture, there are many ways by which to reach a final established goal, involving multiple possible interchangeable stepping stones to reach it. The person from a sequential lineal culture more likely has a crucial path that he or she has developed in advance with planned times for the completion of each stage. This person most likely intensely dislikes being obstructed from this schedule or agenda by events he or she did not anticipate. That's me. For example, Edward Hall, an American anthropologist in the silent language, highlighted how Japanese negotiators would make their major efforts for concession from the Americans after the American partners had already confirmed the return flights from Tokyo. The Japanese, from a synchronic culture, knew that Americans would intensely dislike being thrown off their schedules, and they would often concede in order not to have to reschedule their flights. So the Japanese would make their major demands for concession from the Americans after they knew that the Americans had already confirmed their return flights to go back to the US from Tokyo. And he goes on to mention, for individuals who are not used to synchronic or polychronic styles, they are extraordinary experiences when confronted. Again, just deja vu for me, thinking about all of these experiences in my life. This is the Trompenars, recounts purchasing a plane ticket at an Argentinian counter at the airport, where the clerk was writing the ticket correctly, talking on the telephone to a friend, and admiring her coworker's baby all at the same time. Someone from a linear culture, like Americans, may find such behavior unprofessional and insulting. Like, why aren't you paying attention to me? I'm the customer. You focus on me. Similarly, someone from a linear culture that is socialized to do only one thing at a time may insult a member of a synchronic culture who is used to doing a number of things simultaneously. So here's a South Korean example, right? Trompenar says a South Korean was offended when he walked into the office of his boss in the Netherlands, while the Dutch Netherlands boss was talking on the telephone, and who barely acknowledged the South Korean until he finished his conversation. So, the boss in the Netherlands, says, I'm on the phone, I do this first, then I acknowledge you, the South Korean person coming into the office, because I do this, and this, and this, and this. This insulted the South Korean, when only then did he greet the South Korean, after he was done talking on the phone. For Americans and Dutch, sequencing and controlling emotions suggests insincerity. Well, no, sorry. That's for the South Koreans. He's claiming that sequencing and controlling emotions suggests insincerity. You show people that you value them by, quote, giving them time immediately when they show up, even unexpectedly. You show them that you value them by giving them time. So the Dutch boss should have stopped talking on the phone and greeted his South Korean employee. Sequential people tend to schedule tightly with very short divisions between time slots. That's linear thinking, right? Being late by just a few minutes is rude to them because it throws off the schedule of the day's events. I'm running late, the individual will complain, as if he or she was a train or an airline. I've heard that so many times, from Americans. I'm running late. Time is a commodity to be used up, and lateness deprives the individual of precious minutes in a world in which time is money. In polychronic or synchronic societies, punctuality, defined as a person's arriving at an agreed moment among a sequence of passing time increments, is not so important. It should be agreed moment among a sequence of passing time segment increments is not so important. Several other values view so I guess that several other values view with the passage of time. I'm not sure what I meant there. To give time, therefore, may be necessary to people with whom I have a particular relationship in a universalist society. Giving time may be necessary to show effective pleasure when meeting a friend or a relation unexpectedly. My schedule is not an adequate excuse for passing by such people, and I risk seriously offending them if I, don't give them time. There is no formal scheduling is really permitted here. And also, people prominent in a hierarchy must also be given time. So therefore, meeting times in synchronic or polychronic societies may be approximate. In other words, in Latin America, you schedule a meeting, don't expect people to be on time, but give them 15 minutes. In the Middle East or in Africa, they might arrive hours separately. Everyone has multiple activities going on simultaneously, and everyone knows it to be the case. So waiting is not onerous because there is always something else I am doing anyway. Late arrival can even be a convenience because it allows me to deal with the unexpected. It even applies to preparation of food. In linear sequential societies, prepare the exactly correct amount of food, which must be consumed when finished, or it may not be desirable. While synchronic and polychronic societies prepare more than enough in case more guests arise unexpectedly and the food does not spoil or may be prepared as wanted. Okay, so here's an activity. Measuring cultural differences in relation to time, the circles test. So this is for you now, everybody here. Think of the past, present, and future as being in the shape of circles, circle. So you're going to draw 3 circles in the space available representing past, present, and future. Arrange these circles in any way you want that best shows how you feel about the relationship of past, present, and future. You may use different sizes of circles. When you have finished, label each circle to show which one is the past, which one is the present, which one is the future. So do you understand this? Please take out a piece of paper. Please take out a piece of paper, each of you, and draw a little box like this and put in that box 3 circles. 1 circle for past, 1 circle for present, and 1 circle for future. And you can overlap them. You can keep them separate. You can make one bigger than the other, one bigger than all 3. You can put them over, however you want to do it in the box. Write down 3 circles that you feel represent to you the relationship of past, present, and future with each circle representing past, present, and future. Okay, so please take out a piece of paper and do that. And then I want you to turn on your cameras and show everybody what you drew. Okay, and I don't know if I've got a piece of paper here, so I can do that as well. Everybody do this. Oh, yeah, okay. I already know. And of course, you know, if you want to draw one bigger than the other, you can, if you really admire the future or the past or the present. So okay, you're done. Okay, so let me show you how I feel about time in my life. You ready? Can you see it? Stop share. That's how I feel about past, present, and future. The past is big, 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 big. And the present is separate from the past, and the future is big too for me. That's how I view time, how I feel about time. I told you I spent a lot of time in my, so who's that? That's that's more than Gloria, that's more than that's more than 3 circles. And who's this one? That's Kritika. Kritika, put your I can't make it bigger. I was wondering if I can make it bigger so we can more easily see it. Okay. Past, present, future, they're all linked together. Who's this? This is Daekwon Oak. Yeah. And Gloria and Young Chun Shin. We don't have a picture yet for Young Chun Shin. And I think if you speak, your image will come up, your video will come up. Okay. Okay. So if you there's somebody looking at you behind you, Gloria, wondering what are you doing? You know. Okay, so let's go back to the screen share. And if you did the reading, of course, you know what comes next. The examples of what he claims the relationships that characterize these managers in these countries. You know, what was it in the book? 140,000 managers. So this is how Belgians view past, present, and future, overlapping. Canadians, present, more important, a little bit more important than past or in the future. China, past, present, future, equally the same. France, the past, and that shapes our obligations toward the present and the future, overlapping. Germany, the present, overlaps with the past and the future. Hong Kong, like China, I guess. India. So I guess, I mean, the point is that we're talking how about people feel about time as well as think about time. I mean, this is really, you know, I've been teaching this course for a few years now, right? And as I teach this material, I get more and more insights into it. I mean, I spend a lot of time thinking about the past, even when the time, embarrassing events, and I'm still trying to deal with them today. even though these things happened decades ago, partly because I'm single, I think. I don't have other things to divert my attention. So Japan, look at this, past, present, and future, with the present overwhelming the past and the future. Malaysia, more like Japan. Mexico. Oh, it's the United States. I don't see USA, that's a little bit different. Nigeria, different phases. Norway, Russia, past, more like France, although no overlap. Sweden, UK, USA. This is a Northern European thing, I guess, and Venezuela. So, yeah, think about that. I mean, when we say time is an idea or time is a social construct, it's a cultural artifact, or a cultural feature about how we think about our lives, about the history of our lives, the trajectory of our lives. Cottle, another social scientist, found 4 possible configurations. There's the absence of a relationship, 3 separate circles not overlapping. For example, the Russian and Venezuelan approach to time. The Russian view, however, emphasizes the future much more than the present, and more so than the past. Russian view. Or do I get this? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's saying this is future, present, past. I don't know what they're talking about here. But temporal integration, that is Malaysia, Japan, and the French, past, present, and future fully overlap. And keep in mind, if I'm an American and I deal with somebody from Japan or France or Malaysia, and they act and behave and think and argue in terms of this focus on the past so much. Like, I'm an American, I don't understand the Japanese or Malaysians. What the? Or the French. We're partial overlap of the circles. Belgians and Germans, there's a small overlap. The British have a stronger link to the past, while the present is less important. That is, and the fourth, past, present, and future touch but do not overlap. Sharing of regions between them does occur. A logical flow seems to exist between past, present, and future, but they are not seen as affecting each other. These circles tell us how cultures assign different things to the past, present, future. And this is an important point. I mean, this is really something, to really contemplate, right? That I like to believe that time is like water. Time is like the wind. Time is a real physical thing. Like, we almost believe it's like a real physical thing, and it's not. It's something that we perceive, and that's culturally subjective. And but we think my way of understanding time is normal. What are these French or Japanese and Malaysians doing? Another test from Cottle helps us distinguish how cultures vary in terms of short or long-term horizon. And the duration inventory helps reveal the manner in which individuals perceive the boundaries between past, present, and future, as well as the extension of each. And so he asks you to consider the relative significance of the past, present, and future. You will be asked to indicate your relative time horizons for the past, present, and future by giving a number. So you're supposed to, we can't really do this, on Zoom so much. So, 7 is for years, 6 is for months, 5 is for days, number 4 is for days, number 3 is for hours, number 2 is for minutes. So, and number 2 is for minutes, and number 1 is seconds. So he said, my past started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and ended 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. My present started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 here, and ended 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 from now. My future started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from now and ended 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the authors have taken the average of each of these scores and then calculated an average score for each country. So, we can do this maybe when we get back into class on next Wednesday. We can do this in class with all of us there, because we have to add up everybody's. It just take too long. I need help to do it. So significance differences appear. Hong Kong has the longest time horizon. So the authors have taken the average of each of these 6 scores. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you add up these 6 numbers and you divide them by 6, and then came up with an average score for each country. All the Hong Kong managers, all the Venezuelan managers, all the Malaysian managers, all the American managers, and significant differences appear. Hong Kong has the longest time horizon, while Philippines has the shortest. Our time horizon significantly affects how we do business. The American quarterly thinking, every 3 months, you got to live, every business reporting channel in the United States highlights those quarterly profit reports that corporations have to report every 3 months in terms of how their stock is performing. And their profits, because the profit report determines the stock value. So how is your market performance every 3 months? The Japanese long-term orientation was illustrated when they submitted a bid to purchase operating service rights to Yosemite National Park in California. So that's the place that has those huge trees, sequoias and redwoods, right? So a Japanese company was submitting a bid to gain operating rights for that national park, and they submitted a 250-year business plan. It's like, what? Sweden's long-term orientation perhaps is due to their, and so he's trying to interpret the data, right? Why? I mean, that's the point they make, that these cultural differences are the product of generations of interaction with the environment, with the world to achieve objectives. So Sweden's long-term orientation perhaps is due to the relationship to nature. Perhaps Sweden is so far north that there are only a few bright months in the year in which planning for the whole year happens, because you have to plan for the fact that for 9 months out of the year, you're not going to be able to do anything outside. It's going to be very difficult to do certain things. So you have to make plans over the sequence of short, intense activities spread out over years. Significant differences exist, however, between long-term past orientation, including the past as an extension of the present, on the one hand, and long-term view of the future as presented in figures 9.3 and 9.4. So what's this? This is so who's got the long-term past orientation? Hong Kong. You already mentioned Hong Kong has the longest term orientation in terms of planning, in terms of expectations, and the Philippines has got the shortest. And so where is Korea? Korea is pretty long term. In here, you got Serbia, Austria, China. Where's Italy? I don't see Italy here. No, I guess it's not here. I'm looking for Cambodia. I don't see Cambodia, Kritika. Okay. And the survey questionnaires also allowed us to check the overlap between time horizons, between the degree of synchronicity. So the more overlap there is with these circles, the more the society is a synchronic. You do multiple things at the same time in your expectations and orientations about what's the right way to plan and act to get things that you want in life, including happiness, satisfaction, money. Their correlations are high and overlap with the circles in 9.1. So, so here we go, 9.1. So who's more past oriented? Hong Kong, South Korea, and US, Turkey, and India less so. Versus having a future time orientation. Again, Hong Kong's got this long-term orientation between past and future. China, South Korea here. Look, Singapore, look how short it is in terms of the future. It's strange. So in terms of the implications for business, partnerships and joint ventures are agreements regarding how the future should be jointly engaged. What can we give to a person now so that he or she will work better in the future is the essence of motivation. The augmentation of powers over time is assumed to be the basis of progress, learning, and development. Paying senior people more for the experience they have accumulated over time is a habit that is assumed to augment powers over time. So this is with long-term orientations, long-term past and future orientation societies. That's the orientation that's being described here. Confusion can occur when orientations to time differ within corporations spanning different cultures. Yeah, so again, I guess this is a real case with the names changed. Poor Mr. Johnson dealing with these, I think they're Italians, right? Arguing over the intervals for determining sales, bonuses, and merits. Like, how do you assess somebody's performance in order to give them more money for higher performance? Do you evaluate them every 3 months, or do you evaluate them over a longer period of time? And he notes that in other cultures, the sales manager from Singapore argues that the short-termism is undermining effectiveness, since clients do not like pressure to buy from salespeople trying to get a bonus, which, confront that all the time in the United States. The belief that the individual can direct the future by personal achievement and inner directed effort is the American perspective on the future. The individual cannot do very much about the distant future, so the perspective on the future is short-term. Hence the focus on going for the quick buck, making the immediate profit, and the great importance of the next quarterly figures. One must do better now, since success now increases successes in the future through steadily increasing increments of sales and profits. So you build up short-term successes, and voila, you have more success. In contrast, he says, Trompenars, the French are a synchronic culture with overlap between past, present, and future, with past looming strongly. So successes and opportunities in the future for the company are very much assumed to be interrelated with the past, even decades previously. Right? So he gives you an example, right? This Dutch author was working with a company in the futuristic La Défense business district in Paris around 2000. And the most recent promotional brochure for that company in that futuristic, high-tech La Defense district highlighted the company's achievements in the 1980s. Huh. And so he goes on here. Ties of memory and affection are combined in any lasting relationship with the past, present, and future. Yeah. I always live in the future. I am the future. I mean, I'm always looking forward. Anyway, the quality of human bonds within an organization, as well as between the corporation and its partners, are reflected in different time orientations. The relationship is often its own justification. It is enjoyed far back and far forward. Synchronic cultures, assume like Korean cultures, are more communitarian, we-oriented. They are particularists in the way in that they tend to value people that are known to be special. Particularist versus universalistic, right? In terms of rule application. The attitudinal assumption that relationships are more instrumental characterizes cultures with sequential time. And people are instruments. Relationships are instruments. Relationships as ends tend to be separated from them as means because assumed belief in the separation between them, between time intervals. So relationships as ends tend to be separated from them as means because assumed belief in the separation between time intervals. Higher pay is the means towards still higher performance, and my customer's purchase is the means by which I achieve the higher bonus. The future looms large, but it is near term with a focus on gratification, which is now postponed by working now, because it will soon be even greater if I postpone my gratification, but not too long. And Trompenaars, you remember, he wrote that book on China that just came out. The synchronic approach to managing may be becoming more effective than the instrumental approach, with the latter's focus on the calculation of future gain as the mediating variable in evaluating relationships. He goes on to say, the sheer amount of complex information requiring communication in business may point towards greater effectiveness through relying on synchronic relationship in which past, present, and future of the partners are assumed to be bound together in coevolution, and it may be becoming a more effective way to manage. Yeah, again, my comment here. This is corporatism. That's a theoretical paradigm in political science. Glad to be reminded about that, because I got to work on that idea. Clearly, the assumption that synchronic cultures are somehow primitive is not accurate. But that's the prevailing American view. Sequential cultures in which human resources are seen as factors of production, like physical plant, equipment, and cash, are more likely to be characterized by we-them relations, or more ominously as I-it. That definitely is corporatism. I mean, this synchronic approach. So time orientation authority. National cultures in which past, present, and future times orientations overlap with the past, looming large, are more likely to legitimate status through ascription on the basis of durable characteristics, including class, age, gender, ethnicity, and professional qualifications. It's interesting. I mean, I'm just thinking about that imagined, believed golden age in the medieval or ancient times, right? I mean, that's pretty strong past looming large. And that is an indicator of nationalism. And nationalism is ascriptive. I value Americans because they're Americans, like me. And America first, make America great again. Not Koreans, not Belgians, not Cambodians, America. Even though we're also all human beings. Such synchronic and polychronic national cultures closely interconnect past qualifications, present eminence, and promising futures. And these past qualifications explain them. For example, the study at the prestigious French universities, Le Grand École. So that's this focus on ascription. Oh, you studied at these, like Emmanuel Macron. He was one of these people who studied at these elite known universities in France, where the leaders of France are trained. In sequential cultures, like in the US, the future is a sequence of episodes of relative success and failure. So, for example, in Hollywood, a person's career, an actor's career is only as, or director of a movie is only as good as his last performance. Just as the original American immigrants cut off their ties to the old country where they came from, including their families in sequential societies, people will unburden themselves with dependencies and relationships that are not useful in the next stage of their careers. That's pretty cold, but it's true, right? The last achievement of the individual is the source of authority. If you screw up once, you were in trouble. If you fail once, you've reached your limit. Those individuals who are in top authority today may be gone tomorrow. In sequential national cultures, the authority of the individual can also be easily challenged and assessed. So, for example, what did the person achieve in the most recent time interval? And so he says, for example, the U.S. National Aeronautic and Space Administration, NASA, pioneered project group organization. It is popular in North America and in Northwest Europe. The different parts of the organization that the senior leadership identifies as contributing more to good organizational performance and achieving project goals receive rewards, including more resources, while those parts of the organization that are identified as a source of failures receive fewer resources. Individuals within the successful organizational components also receive individual rewards. That supposedly is, yeah, I've seen that. Pretty cold, huh? Pretty harsh. Yeah, and here comes to promotion and performance evaluation. You know, and those words fill many people with dread, because this is when you're evaluated for your performance in the organization. You're going to keep your job, not to mention be promoted or get a pay bonus. Synchronic and sequential cultures, with the former showing more concern for the past, the latter show more concern for the future, may assess and promote individuals differently. In sequential cultures, the superior focuses the assessment, the performance evaluation, the assessment on the employee's performance during the preceding interview. So what did you do in the last year? The more the employee is responsible for the rise or fall in fortune, the better. The temptation of the supervisor to minimize his or her own role in the employee's performance. So the temptation of the supervisor to minimize his or her own role in the employee's performance, or their relationship to the employee, as much as possible. That's the temptation. Like, we're not going to talk about what the boss did to help or hurt or help or not help the employee being evaluated. The employee will thereby be encouraged to see his or her own achievement as an increment of gain or loss. In more synchronic organizations, the assessment of the employee will tend to focus on the relationship established with the supervisor. So the relationship established with the supervisor will be more important in assessing the performance or the behavior of the employee. The supervisor sees this relationship as developing over time and accumulating knowledge and mutuality. Supervisors hardly acknowledge their role in their advancing the career of their subordinate. And of course, the best example, and again, an interesting example of that is the master apprentice system in Germany. And again, the Germans have set up an entire system whereby young people, it's got its drawbacks, but in this system, young people are evaluated and assessed and in terms of their skills and capabilities and qualifications, and then assigned or directed or moved into different employment career tracks, including whether it be manual labor, skilled labor, becoming a college professor or a lawyer or a performer or an artist, and they're assigned a master who will train them while they're in school, like an apprenticeship, but more institutionalized, and it's set up as part of the education system in Germany. And of course, remember, Germany is a high-cost country in the global economy, and it consistently has much lower unemployment rates than much of the rest of the world. And it succeeds in competing, despite paying their workers a lot of money, in being a high-cost country, in competing in producing products for export. I mean, the German economy is critically dependent upon competition in the global market. And one of the sources or reasons or factors explaining how Germany continues to be so successful in competing in world markets for exports is the labor force is highly trained and skilled. And I mean, before the pandemic, I was witnessing at academic conferences, German professors, teachers who could speak English coming to American conferences and trying to explain this master apprentice system to the Americans as a pattern or a model that the Americans should consider to improve the performance of their education system in preparing their young people for careers. So managing change in a past oriented culture. Yeah, this is an interesting statement, right? Because we talk about golden age history, give you a sense of how nationalistic Ethiopians are. I'm not going to go into the details, right? There was case frustration in discussing with Ethiopian managers regarding the change management principles in terms of bringing about change in the organization, because the Ethiopians would not accept any such principles that were not rooted in Ethiopia's ancient golden age history. So how did they convince the Ethiopians to accept these changes or change management principles? By reemphasizing proposals as prescriptions for reestablishing this golden age, succeeded in gaining the Ethiopian managers' enthusiasm. Wow, I got to think about this again. I'm getting, these are like, all change includes some continuity. That is, changing only in some respects in order to preserve one's identity. In fact, many non-Western managers will not accept advice from Western consultants unless they clearly understand also how they will preserve their identity. Um, yeah, again, this focus upon building relationships. So it gives you an example about how a French firm beat out an American firm in selling telecommunications products to Mexicans because the French focused on building a relationship. The French manufacturers spent 2 weeks in Mexico building relationships with the Mexicans, while the Americans came down and pitched their product in a one-day presentation, despite the fact that the American product was superior than the French product that they were trying to sell to the Mexicans. In synchronic cultures, American sequencing appears aggressive, impatient, and exploitative, right? In other words, you appear to be only interested in getting money from a buyer. In synchronic cultures, including the buyer, want to have some control over the relationship as well. They know the relationship is important because we're going to need an ongoing service relationship for that product they're going to buy. For Americans, there is a narrow definition of the end. That is, the Mexicans say yes and buy the product. That's the end of the relationship for the Americans. For the French, there is no end to the relationship. The Americans also made a mistake when they went ahead with the presentation that they were making in their one-day presentation. When the Mexican minister buying the telecommunications equipment left the room for a phone call and took a while to return. So this is a minister in the Mexican government. The Americans are making a presentation. The Mexican minister gets a phone call. And he leaves the room to take the phone call. And the Americans just acted like, well, we're going to continue here because that's well. And the Mexicans were insulted. You should have stopped and waited for him to come back. It showed impatience, disrespect, because the Americans would not give them time. And when he didn't return, the Americans might not be available. In other words, the Americans would not demonstrate a readiness to synchronize. Like, do you want it or not? Plan sequences or plan convergence. In sequentially planned cultures, forecasts are the substance of planning. Forecasting involves projecting existing trend lines into the future, like the United States is a sequential society. The future is therefore assumed to be familiar. And here, strategies involve choosing desirable goals. To achieve them means analyzing the trends to discover the most logical and efficient means by which to attain those desirable goals. Thereby, the present and the future are believed to be causally linked. What happens in the future is a result of my decisions, our decisions today. Rewards to employees who perform well will produce greater future achievements, leading to greater rewards. Deadlines are important because they signal the end of one forecast or causal link in this chain to achieve the desired future. They lead to the next causal link, keeping everyone on schedule. Okay, so finally we get to the exercises here. Let's measure the degree of sequentialism and synchronism by the following question. I don't think I prepared an exercise for this. So in general, what do you prefer to work on? One project at a time or more than one? So, so the Bulgarians are the most synchronic. they, in terms of drawing the circle over here, the Bulgarian, that's what the low numbers mean. The lower the number, the closer they are over here to working on more than one project. And who's at the bottom? Iceland, Sweden, Germany, Norway, Switzerland, all Northern European countries. Denmark, Netherlands, Austria. Let's see where the United States is here. Where's the US? South Korea? It's pretty desirable to work on more than one project at once. There's the United States. I don't see Italy. Italy up here. Between sequential and synchronic cultures, considerable variation exists in planning. In sequential cultures, planning the means and stages and getting them completed on time is vital. In synchronic cultures, the emphasis is more on the goals, and the devising multiple paths to achieve them is wise to deal with unforeseen consequences. Yeah, that pretty much summarizes Bulgaria. They focus on the near future, so they're vulnerable to complex, long sequences of events. So in turbulent environments, there is evidence that sequential planning processes works less well, like American ways of thinking. So in turbulent environments where you have to be flexible, synchronic approaches may be better. He gives you examples. The Italian organization, the 1990 World Football Cup, the 92 Olympic Games in Spain, would organize the entire program periodically when they're organizing these Olympic events. The 1996 Atlanta Olympic Cup Games had difficulty adapting to the unexpected. So synchronic plans involve different units all focusing on predetermined goals, with each determining the best route forward as the unexpected arises through fusions with other groups' actions and exploiting reactions to trend developments, that is, lateral connections. And an example of synchronic planning is Shell International Petroleum Corporation scenario planning. So scenarios for 3 alternative futures written, writing, commenting on as if he is in each alternative future that is within the imagination, past, present, and future are synchronized. 3 alternative developments are traced from the past through the present into the future. Yeah, that's, with climate change and the turmoils that we're seeing in the world, it's best to be prepared to deal with the unexpected. And synchronic thinking, synchronic planning is probably wise. And I saw that myself. Well, I won't go into it now, but in terms of, I used to do these international politics scenarios, and people that wrote strategies, the purpose of preparing a strategy is not because you think the strategy is going to be implemented. You try to implement the strategy, but when people have thought through all of the strategies that they're going to, and the justifications for the elements of a strategy, they will face the unexpected. And the fact that they have prepared for all of these different scenarios means that they're already prepared to rearrange and reconfigure all the components they thought about to produce a new strategy to deal with the unexpected. And the unexpected always emerges. Despite my efforts to control everything by my own actions, there's going to be all these other actions outside of me that I cannot control, and that will determine my future. So how do I prepare for that? Prepare strategies think through and justify the strategies. And then when you confront the unexpected, you're more able to adapt more quickly and more effectively than your competitors who assume that the environment is stable in their planning. And one of the scenarios was in this Shell 3 alternative future scenario planning. One scenario set in 2003, the rise of the electric car and the impending end of the internal combustion engine. So sequential and synchronic thinking combined together. Each synchronic scene has different sequence of events. Through scenario planning, it is possible to reconcile sequential and synchronic thinking. They can be used in conjunction. So that's strategy. That's interesting. Okay, reconciling the sequential and the synchronic. He gives a case of the Dutch retail customer and the Italian clothes supplier. It is necessary to establish a personal relationship with the Italians in order to get for them to deliver on time. They are offended by legal, vaguely threatening impersonal contracts that Americans like and Northern Europeans like. Yeah, I'm just thinking about my personal experiences. Okay, test yourself here. So some managers are arguing about the best ways of improving cycle time and getting products to market when they are needed. Here are 4 positions. 1, it is crucial to speed up operations and shorten time to market. Time is money. Enemies of tighter schedules and faster deliveries do too much talking and relating to each other. 2, it is crucial to speed up operations and shorten time to market. The faster the jobs are done, the sooner you can pass the baton to colleagues or customers in the relay race. 3, just-in-time synchronization of processes with customers is the key to shorter cycle times. The more processes overlap and run simultaneously, the more time is saved. And this should be 4 here. 4, just-in-time synchronization of processes with customers is the key to shorter cycle times. Doing things faster results in exhaustion and rushed work. So let me see, what did I have set up here? Screen share, back to here, and oh, it timed me out. Okay, I gotta relog in. And methodology. This. G. Vote. And yeah, so you have to, oh, that's the, what is that? Well, I guess I didn't prepare an exercise for this. Well, just to go highlight here that answer 2, no, okay. High-speed sequences and just-in-time synchronicity respective. Oh, let me fix that here. Screen share. High-speed sequences and just-in-time synchronicity respectively are illustrated by answers 1 and 4. So 1 and 4 are illustrate what they call high-speed sequences and just-in-time synchronicity. Answer 2 approves of high-speed sequences, connecting them to synchronic processes. And answer 3 approves of just-in-time synchronicity, connecting them to high-speed sequences. So he's trying to show how, sequences and synchronicity have to relate to each other. they must relate to each other. They therefore both must exist in our thinking. And you know, how to recognize the difference. Somebody who's past oriented talks about history and origin of family, business, and nation, motivated to create a golden age, show respect for ancestors, predecessors, and older people. Everything is viewed in the context of tradition or history. The present, somebody who focuses on the present-oriented cultures, activities and enjoyments of the moment are most important. Plans are not objected to, but are rarely executed. They show intense interest in present relationships, the here and now. Everything is viewed in terms of its contemporary impact and style. Future-oriented cultures, there's much talk about prospects, potentials, aspirations, and future achievements. Planning and strategizing are done enthusiastically. Intense interest is shown in youthfulness and in future potentials. The present and past are used, even exploited for future advantage. So here's tips for reconciliation, of sequencing and sequential thinking. Tips for reconciling, doing business with present and future-oriented individuals, doing business with, for present and future-oriented individuals, doing business with past and present-oriented people. So if you're future-oriented, you're dealing with past and present-oriented people, what you should do is emphasize the history, tradition, and rich cultural heritage of those you deal with as evidence of their vast potential. You always think about potential, right? You know, potential. And then you think about potential because you're future oriented, but you're dealing with people who are past oriented. So you got to talk about how their past is going to be great for their potential, Discover whether internal relationships will sanction the kind of changes you seek to encourage. Agree to future meetings in principle, but do not fix deadlines for completion. Do your homework on the history, traditions, and past glories of the company. Consider what reenactments you might propose. For past and present-oriented individuals doing business with future-oriented people, emphasize the freedom, opportunity, limitless scope for the company and its people in the future. Discover what core competence or continuity the company intends to carry with it into the envisaged future. Yeah, I mean, I'm just struck by how I've heard this so often in American business circles. Agree to specific deadlines. Do not expect work to be completed unless you have set such deadlines. Yeah, so, you know, Americans want deadlines. Do your homework on the future, the prospects and technological potentials of the company. Consider mounting a sizable challenge. Yeah, so there's a lot to cover, obviously, in this interesting chapter. Recognizing the differences in sequential orientation. That's a split. Sequential orientation, only engage in one activity at a time. Time is tangible and measurable in sequential cultures. Keep appointments strictly. They schedule in advance and do not run late. Relationships are generally subordinate to schedule. There's a strong preference for following initial plans. In synchronic orientation, they engage in more than one activity at a time. Time is continuous and diffuse, and there is less concern for watching the clock. Appointments are approximate and subject to giving time to significant others. Schedules are generally subordinate relationships. There is a strong preference for following where relationships lead. So I guess these are concrete tips for that Trump and ours wants to give to you managers. Differences in managing and being managed. Sequentially oriented people. If you're going to manage sequentially oriented people like Americans, employees feel rewarded and fulfilled by achieving planned future goals as in management by objectives. Employees' most recent performance, well, okay, let's do it this way. But compared to synchronically oriented people, employees feel rewarded and fulfilled by achieving improved relationship with supervisors and customers. For sequentially oriented people, employees' most recent performance is the major issue, along with whether their commitments for the future can be relied on. For synchronically oriented people, employees' whole history with the company and future potentials, the context in which their current performance is viewed. For sequentially oriented, plan the career of an employee jointly with him or her, stressing landmarks to be reached by certain times. Here, discuss with the employee for synchronically oriented people, discuss with the employee his or her final aspirations in the context of the company. In what ways can these be realized? For managing and being managed sequentially oriented people, the corporate ideal is the straight line and the most direct, efficient, and rapid route to your objectives. But for synchronically oriented people, the corporate ideal is the interacting circle in which past experience, present opportunities, and future possibilities interact. Okay. The next chapter is about how different cultures relate to the environment, to nature. And we've only got 3 minutes left. So managers are asked to select the statement that most reflected reality. A, it is worthwhile to control important natural forces such as the weather. Or B, nature should take its course and we just have to accept it the way it comes and do the best we can. So let's go to the screen share and go back to the exercises here. Oh, I did have an exercise set up. I missed this. Okay, so please answer these questions here. Again, and it's not anonymous, okay? So A, it is worthwhile trying to control important natural forces such as the weather. B, nature should take its course and we just have to accept it that way it comes to and do the best we can. So do you choose A, it is worthwhile to control natural forces such as the weather, or B, nature should take its course and we just have to accept the way it comes to us and do the best we can? Yeah, Americans all go for A, right? We will master the environment. So, and let's go back to that exercise that I missed. Yeah, I did have an exercise set up for this. Some managers are arguing about the best ways of improving cycle time and getting products to market when they are needed. So you should choose one. Do you choose 1, 2, 3, or 4? We covered that already. And it's identified, so it's not anonymous. And so I guess it's interesting just to look at the differences. So we have, and there's no right or wrong answer here, right? There's no right or wrong answer. They wanted to show you, Trompenaars wanted to show you how you have to interrelate synchronic and sequential processes. You need both synchronic and sequential processes, and you need to link them. You need to integrate them. You need to reconcile them, not obliterate one or the other. And we do it already. And Shell does it. They show how to integrate in their 3 scenario planning, synchronic and sequential thinking. Okay. Well, that's it for today. And, you know, when we meet next on Friday, we'll have more of these exercises to do. Okay. These vote things to do. So does anybody have any questions? If not, I will bid you adieu. Bye.
Bye.